First-person shooters. There are lots of game genres out there, but this is one that I just keep coming back to whether I want to or not. And it makes sense. Grown up on Halo, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and Battlefield, then as an adult add in a couple thousand hours of Overwatch and Valorant, and well, yeah. However, virtual reality FPS games really just hit different. And throughout my tens of thousands of hours in VR, I've pretty much played them all quite a bit. And every single one of them has their own little secret sauce that makes them special. And well, whenever that FPS bug bites, I find myself reaching for my headset more and more rather than my mouse, which is kind of a big deal. And now, whenever I do play flat FPS games, I constantly find myself thinking about how much better it would all work in VR. But frankly, these games aren't VR. These are. So here's something I've been wanting to do for a while now. A video dedicated to VR shooters to find out which one is the best, in my opinion, of course. And we'll be talking about multiplayer shooters. Multiplayer versus single player VR FPS games are in totally different leagues. Believe me, if I could have Boneworks or Half-Life Alyx be a multiplayer experience, well, then this video would be a little different. But they're not multiplayer, at least not yet. But back on topic. Picking out which one is the best is kind of difficult. Each one does its own thing well, and the best for me may not be the best for you, so let's take a look at all of them and see what's good and bad about each one. I think we should start with the first one that I really fell in love with. Good old Population 1. Many games have tried the Battle Royale formula in VR, some more successful than others, but Pop 1 takes the cake for a variety of reasons within this subgenre. I mean, look, a Battle Royale in VR just makes so much sense. There's not much that can beat that adrenaline rush of being the last few squads alive, then outplaying every single opponent to win. And Pop 1 does such a good job of translating the typical BR formula into VR given the state of where VR is at right now. It's not a 100-person event because, well, there just aren't enough players to fill a bunch of lobbies with that. So instead, it's limited to just 6 squads of 3 in a pretty condensed map. The graphics are super simple and the mechanics are also simplified, probably to allow anyone to play even if it's their first time in VR. Really, it just makes it super arcadey. And even though the game is probably the easiest VR FPS to get into for the first time, there's still a super high skill ceiling because of building. And that's where I kind of nope out. I love the verticality and shooting, but my brain is too smooth to do all of it at the same time. And I don't really find myself playing much anymore. Even though the game has a crazy skill ceiling and it's easy to get into, there's a distinct lack of depth. Maybe it's because of the super arcadey shooting mechanics, maybe it's because people have gotten too good and now you have to build, otherwise you'll run into people that will and they will beat you. Or maybe I'm looking for a more in-depth VR BR. But Big Box has a good formula and the game is still getting updates and I don't think that they're done yet. I think something also frustrating is the player population has decreased, so getting a full lobby is harder and harder, but it's still a good one and I'm always checking the update to see if they take away building. They already copied Fortnite quite a bit, you could just copy them again. But next up, we can talk about not my first love, but my first VR FPS, Pavlov. And oh boy, this one has changed a lot over the years. This is the OG, by far the biggest VR FPS out there. And it's for pretty good reason. Pavlov is a lot of things. It's kind of the Swiss Army knife of VR shooters, not great at any one particular thing, but good at a lot. Zombies, gun game, TTT, search and destroy, crazy weird modded maps. To put Pavlov simply, it's pretty much the VR chat of FPS games, and offers some of the best casual fun out there. I mean, where else can you play Star Wars zombies with a group of people in VR? The real beauty of Pavlov isn't the game itself, but the modded content that allows anyone to do pretty much anything within the basic rules of Pavlov. And right now, it's probably the best shooter on Quest standalone, plus it's free and has a large player base. But I do have a few problems with Pavlov. They've pretty much abandoned the PC side of the game to now focus on Quest, which I totally understand. They probably have 5 to 10 times as many players on Quest than PC, but it still doesn't feel good, you know? And if if it weren't for the modding community actually making content for Pavlov, I don't think it would have even a fraction of the player base it does. And really, Pavlov is just good at being the VR chat of FPSs. I don't really take it seriously, and I don't think it's meant to be taken seriously. It's goofy, a little buggy, and just fun. And of course, there is a competitive side to the game, but in my opinion, it just doesn't feel right. Like, the game isn't built to be a competitive shooter. That doesn't mean it's not fun, and that doesn't mean it's not good. It's just far more of a casual experience for me. It's my go-to for zombies or a few matches a gun game. I should also say that this whole idea that Pavlov is purely a casual game may slowly be changing as Quest is actually ahead of the PC version with the newest RC update, and that update is pretty darn good, but this is my opinion at the time of this video. May change in the future. And next is probably the opposite of Pavlov, Vail. But first, I want to throw out a big disclaimer. The Vail team literally pay me to meet with them once a week and give them advice. I am an advisor. I just want to be completely transparent and honest. I don't work for them, and I don't agree with everything they do, and I have never been obligated or paid to do a video for them, and I never will. And if you want to discount everything I'm about to say on why I like Vail, then I totally understand. But also, being honest, I would never take a deal like that if I didn't really like this game. And spoiler, I think Vail has got something really special, which is why I even agreed to be an advisor in the first place. I believe in their potential, even if they do weird stuff all the time. Plus, it's a free game. Like, who are they hurting? They're not trying to take anyone's money. Okay, disclaimer over. I just wanted to be totally transparent with you guys. But if Pavlov is the king of casual, Vail is the king of competitive. I was interested in their project really early on because that was their core focus, and I love competitive FPS games. Esports are in my blood, from Halo 3, Counter-Strike, Overwatch, and this is, in my opinion, VR's best shot at a good competitive shooter, at least for now. To some, the game may look plain, but to the competitive eye, it's streamlined. And everything about this game is built to make it exactly that, a really solid, streamlined competitive game. It's predictable and stable. Guns will always behave exactly like you expect them to. The netcode was a huge priority to make the game fair from a network perspective, and every player is the exact same height, which solves a lot of weird problems that other games have. And while this is the only game on this list that isn't on Quest, like I said, it's free on PC, and it's constantly getting updates like every day, which is awesome. And they're even holding a massive esports tournament right now with a big cash prize, like 170 teams, something that I could applaud them for even trying. The last time anyone did that was an Oculus tournament like 4 years ago, and while I personally don't think VR esports are quite ready to be mainstream, you don't really get to that point of VR esports being viable without building the foundation, which is what they're trying to achieve. Really, it's a solid game with good gun mechanics. It's got a cool aesthetic. The devs are constantly listening to the community and tweaking the game to the community, and it's being built to be competitive. And the reason why I care if something's competitive is if I'm gonna spend time in a game and train to get better at it, I want to feel like it's worth something. Like, it's like a long-term investment of my time and effort to get good at a game. You know, I want to make sure it's a good platform. But Vail isn't perfect. There's very limited game modes like Team Deathmatch, Artifact, which is pretty much search and destroy and just a skirmish. And it's still in early beta, so it's still missing a few features and it's rough around the edges. But its attention to detail, updates, and incredibly fast-growing community make it a pretty cool place to be. But now, onto the other competitive game, Onward. Gotta be real with you guys, I like Onward's guns better than any other VR game out there, straight up. They just feel so freaking good to use. It's just the right mix between realistic and a gamey feel, and Onward also has a pretty decent competitive community with whole leagues built around it. But Onward also plays a lot different than all the other games here. While I love the guns, Onward is just a very, very slow game. And maybe it's my ADHD brain or something, but the slow movement and playstyle of Onward where you strategically sit and hold sight lines for 5 minutes, it just doesn't work for me. I like everything about it on paper except the core gameplay loop. But that doesn't mean it's not for some people. I'm sure there are people out there that love realistic military simulations. If that's your thing, then here you go. And that also doesn't mean that there isn't anything else to do in the game. I just don't like the slow nature of the competitive play here. Deathmatch or gun game on smaller maps is crazy fun, although it's still pretty slow also due to the movement speed. And I think the biggest problem with Onward, other than movement speed or map design, was their update a while ago when making Onward Quest compatible. I mean, it heavily downgraded the game's visuals for everyone and introduced some weird network issues, but the game is still being updated and a lot of those issues have been somewhat fixed. And really, if Pavlov is VR chat with guns, Vail is Counter-Strike, and Onward is a straight up milsim or maybe closer to Battlefield, this next one is straight up Call of Duty VR, and lately I have kind of fallen in love. Contractors is pretty darn underrated in my opinion. While it's not as competitive as Vail, it's not as social as Pavlov, and not as realistic as Onward, Contractors is just plain fun. It has the fastest movement speed out of any of these games, a freaking jump button, pretty decent graphics, tight arcadey gunplay, and honestly, in terms of just hopping in for a fun casual deathmatch, Contractors is about to take over Pavlov for me. Plus, the modding community for the game is pretty impressive as well, like straight up Halo 3 maps, Endor, and more. And while some people may not like the super quick movement speed and lack of recoil or these ridiculously beefy arms, it really captures that Call of Duty run and gun feel and scratches that itch for me. And I really don't know why Contractors doesn't have a larger player base, to be honest. At its core, I think it's a better shooter than Pavlov, but then again, Pavlov is largely successful because it's turned into a social game with a gun mechanic, and Contractors is kind of the other way around. Plus, not everyone likes the super fast run and gun feel. But like, even while shooting some footage for this video, I got crazy carried away and ended up playing for a few hours with random people I met up, and that's a pretty powerful feeling. So I do want to mention that these definitely aren't all of the VR shooters out there. There are a lot of them. Some of them are pretty good and some of them should be good. And by the way, I definitely still want to do a full video on the tragedy of Larcenauts. Man, like, I was wishing for that game. But within this class of VR FPS, these are pretty much the biggest ones that have a sizable player base. And you know what? I initially started this video to try and find the best VR FPS, but actually playing all of them and breaking down what I like and don't like about each one just made me realize trying to pick the best shooter is just kind of dumb right now. They are so different and they all have their strengths. And you know what? I feel a good analogy is to compare VR FPS games to pants. Some days I'm feeling hyper competitive, so I'll throw on some slick track shorts and play Vail. Sometimes I feel like throwing on straight up combat boots and camel pants to play Onward, and sometimes I put on some long basketball shorts, pop open a Mountain Dew to play some Call of Duty, I mean Contractors. And sometimes I don't wear pants at all. And everyone has their style. Some people wear pretty much the same style of pants every single day. They never try anything else. And others have a wardrobe that's diverse depending on how they feel that day. And you know what? That's how I'm gonna view my VR FPS games for the foreseeable future. At this point, they are all very playable, they are all very fun, and they all do something just a little different for people that are also just a little different. And this feels like such an exciting time to be a VR gamer, I guess. We really haven't had this good of options to choose from, and they all do their part. We got the realistic, we got the competitive, we got the VR, we got the arcade. And personally, I'm keeping them all installed. But you guys just watched a whole video on my opinion of each game, so now is your turn. Let me know in a comment which VR FPS is your favorite and why. I personally am still waiting for a Valorant or Overwatch of VR. I mean, if they really pulled that off, I'd probably end up sticking with one of those. But for now, I think I'm pretty darn happy just keeping my wardrobe nice and diverse. But anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you so much to my Patreon supporters, especially my megas. I couldn't do any of this without you. And don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.